we're ranking the 64 best TV theme songs.
I haven't seen most of the shows at all.
Welcome to Spin It.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Spin It, the record ranking podcast for people who'd rather be listening to music. I'm James. With me is Connor.
Hello. We're back in the stadium for another bracket challenge.
Yes, we are back in the bracket challenge arena. And do you know why?
Well, for some challenges. We got a bunch of head-to-head competitions here between our contestants, duking it out to move on to the next round.
Yeah, but I mean, do you know why we're doing a bracket challenge today? Why we have contestants in head-to-head challenges?
I assume March Madness?
Yeah, that's right. This episode comes out on the first day of March, and we wanted to lean into that by playing along with March Madness. You know, we've done bracket challenges in the past. Episode 60 was a singles episode. It was a bracket challenge. A lot of our holiday specials have been bracket challenges, and so we wanted to do another bracket challenge. It seemed fitting, but we wanted to make it special. We didn't want to rank, I mean, we already rank all the albums, so a bracket challenge of albums that we've done would kind of be a moot point. Like, you already could tell who's going to win.
Yeah.
And Connor has been on my back for a long time to do something like we're about to do today. Would you care to share what your vision for this was?
TV show theme songs.
That's right. I mean, you've been talking about not just TV show themes, but you also talked about movie themes and soundtracks.
Oh, yeah, we'll be getting there.
Yeah, we'll get there. But we figured we'd start, since there are 64 slots in a March Madness bracket, we figured we'd pick 64 of the best TV shows of all time, or the most iconic TV theme shows songs of all time, and rank them there.
Across all genres, too. I mean, we spent a long time curating this list. A lot of really good themes lost out in the prelims, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And we've narrowed it down to 64 in 4 distinct categories, 16 in each category.
Yeah, so ideally until later rounds, we won't have like comedies going up against heavy drama shows. So that way we kind of put the best of the best against the rest, so to speak.
Yes. So our 4 categories in the upper left, we've got dramas.
Dramas. A category that I don't know much about.
Or as they call it, the Northwest. The Northwest bracket is dramas.
Yeah.
The Northeast bracket, sitcoms.
Yeah, that's one I know a lot better.
In the Southwest, crime/action shows.
That is one I know even less than drama.
Yeah. And in the South right, a kind of miscellaneous category with reality TV, game shows, animated shows, and children's shows, all kind of each getting 4 representatives.
Yeah, that is true. I can't help but notice that you mixed cardinal directions and like left and right there.
Oh, I said north. I
mean, you went from like northeast to like south right.
No, I said southwest.
You definitely said south right.
I'm pretty certain I said.
And this is the part where I cut that in.
And in the south right, I might have said south right, but I definitely said southwest. I might have accidentally, in the middle of trying to read chat, said south right instead of southeast, but I definitely said northwest, northeast, and southwest. Definitely got those 3 right.
Sure. I was sad about some of the shows we had to eliminate.
There was so many. Do you want to talk about any of the prelim eliminations that you were really sad didn't make the cut?
I was kind of sad about things like The Muppet Show. I was sad we didn't have Bonanza or Gunsmoke in here. I mean, you'll see what we have in the bracket in a minute, but just the heartbreak. We lost some good ones early on. The Dukes of Hazzard didn't make it. The Addams Family didn't make it. You know.
Yeah, my heartbreak was honestly, some of the like stuff that got eliminated simply because we've done it. We talked about it before.
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo and the Addams Family already exist on this podcast in the Mixtapers Halloween 13.
We did talk about, at least, did we talk about the Addams Family?
Yeah, pretty certain we did. I don't know, did we? I meant to. I don't know if that one made it or not. It wasn't in the top 13. Apparently it wasn't. Well, that one could have made here, but oh well.
See, it didn't. Next year, maybe.
And then, because we could only pick 16 of each type, especially in like the sitcoms, it was hard.
Tough.
To pick only 16 six. We couldn't do a full 64 sitcoms, I don't think, but we definitely could have done like a 32.
Yeah. We tried to stick with stuff that either is known as a very good or popular show, or theme songs that are known as very good and popular theme songs.
And honestly, we kind of leaned more towards popular theme songs, right? There are several really popular shows that didn't make it in here.
It's true.
Because they had virtually no theme song, or it was just really unmemorable.
Yeah. You tried to put Black Mirror on here, and Black Mirror just has a sound. It just like is a little ambient noise, and then the screen cracks.
But the way we seeded all of these, and also kind of what helped give us our initial list, that then we swapped things around in terms of what we picked. But the way we seeded everything once we had our list of 16 was actually by the Rotten Tomatoes score. So,
yeah,
it was completely impartial, so that we could go into this ranking the theme songs completely blind, and there could be some fun upsets in the bracket, just like in March Madness. So the number 1 seed is like the number 1 rated show in that category, according to the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. So if you disagree with the seeding, blame the audience on Rotten Tomatoes, not us.
Blame yourself. Yeah. No. Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Unfortunately, the mixtaper's not going to be able to make this episode. He somehow got the wrong address for where the stadium was. He's up in the blimp somewhere. Out over the Pacific Ocean. Not really sure how that happened.
We're nowhere near the Pacific Ocean. That's a shame.
We keep trying to tell him there's no actual stadium. He doesn't seem to get it.
Yeah, this beautiful stadium doesn't really exist.
Yeah. But anyway, let's reveal the northwest corner. Is that where we're starting?
Yeah, we're starting with drama.
Drama.
Here are the dramas that we've got today. The 16 starting, I guess we should call them teams, maybe, for
teams.
Like March Madness,
Yeah.
or I guess they're just shows.
The 16 teams.
Okay, the 16 teams in drama. We've got Chernobyl, we've got The Twilight Zone, we got Mad Men, we got Shameless.
Number 1 seed, Chernobyl. Number 16 seed, Twilight Zone. This follows the March Madness, seed system, where the best plays the worst, and so on and so forth. So we don't have to necessarily say for all of them, but just know these matchups are in that order: 1, 16, 3, 14, 5, 12, 7, 10, 8, 9, 6, 11, 4, 13, and 2, 15. There you go.
Yeah, and that means the number 1 seed Chernobyl is up against the 16 Twilight Zone. 3 Mad Men is up against number 14 Shameless. 5 Twin Peaks is up against The X-Files. The Crown is up against Star Trek The Next Generation, right?
The Next Generation, Star Trek The Next Generation, but that was too much to fit here.
Yeah, we've got a tiny little... we tried to get as readable options on the screen as we could, but ooh boy.
Yeah.
We've got Stranger Things up against Westworld. We got Buffy the Vampire Slayer up against Succession. We got Band of Brothers versus Game of Thrones. That's the blank of blank round. And we've got West Wing versus Yellowstone. That's our drama bracket. So let's jump into it. With 64 to rank, I hope we have a normal length episode on our hands. And I think we will.
I think we will, because there's not a lot to go into necessarily, other than our reasoning for why we picked what we did.
Yeah, and we had some heated debates that we'll have to dig into.
Yeah, we have some dissenting opinions on some of these.
No doubt. And first up, we've got Chernobyl versus The Twilight Zone. There actually, we led in with what we just said. There was not much debate on this one at all.
Yeah.
I have not seen Chernobyl. You'll find out as we go. I have not seen a lot of these, especially in the drama and crime categories. But I have not seen Chernobyl. The theme song was okay.
It was okay.
It didn't blow me away. But at The Twilight Zone, that's iconic. It's
iconic.
History-making TV themes. And maybe it hasn't aged as well as some of the other themes on this list. But it was ahead of its time, just like the rest of the show.
Which means right off the bat, we have a upset with the number 16 seed knocking out number 1 seed Chernobyl, with Twilight Zone moving on to the next round.
I like The Twilight Zone a lot. It's that eerie, creepy feeling. It fits the show very, very well. You know what I like about this bracket, too, just as a side note? In previous bracket challenges, we've said all the stuff about each song in the first round. Mm-hmm. So the last rounds have gone pretty quick. This won't have that problem because each matchup presents a unique angle on how the theme songs kind of compare.
Yeah.
Which is cool. But up next is Mad Men and Shameless. We'll figure out who gets to go against The Twilight Zone.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen Mad Men. You made me watch probably an episode and a half or 2 of Shameless, so I was familiar with the theme song. Mad Men was different.
Mad Men, I kind of think it has become synonymous with the show. It's one of those ones that does such a good job of embodying the mood of the show.
I suppose, but I'm not familiar with the mood of the show. And the title sequence itself, when we're not judging these on title sequence, but I mean, I watched the title sequence when I could.
But like as kind of tiebreakers, sometimes it comes in if it ties in really well.
Yeah. And I gotta say, Shameless has a very clever title sequence. The shot of the toilet in the same bathroom as all the characters come in and interact with it in different ways is kind of clever, and it really embodies what the show's about. I like the way that the theme song sounded.
And like punk rock bomb. Bum, bum, dun, 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 like that.
Yeah, it was chaotic, and it was messy, and it was a lot.
That fits. It's a very chaotic show.
Yeah, it seems like a very chaotic show. And all those reasons, I think, just made it a really good fit and a really interesting theme song. So we decided Shameless should move on in this round.
Another upset. Number 14 seed. Moving on.
Yeah, it's weird that we've got 2 upsets in the first 2 here.
Sometimes it happens that way.
Yeah. Maybe worse rated shows just have better theme songs?
They need something to make up for it.
Could be, I don't know. Up next, we've got Twin Peaks versus The X-Files.
I don't remember your arguments on this one. I think it was kind of was this a blowout one? Did you really have anything to say about the loser?
I don't have anything to say about Twin Peaks.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I haven't seen it. I don't know much about it. The theme song wasn't like I expected it to be. And just The X-Files is so good.
Yeah.
I mean, it became a meme. It extended beyond the show.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I started the X-Files theme song, which I also haven't seen the X-Files.
Which is a shame.
But I was like, oh yeah, that's this. Wah, 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 wah. I was like, this is perfect. Yes. Obviously, I think it's no secret the X-Files has to move on.
Yeah.
So another upset.
Yep, 3 for 3 on upsets. All right.
Yeah. Now, round 4 here, The Crown versus Star Trek. That was an interesting matchup. The Crown was very regal.
Uh-huh.
I thought The Crown was like very pomp. The instrumentation was really cool and engaging.
Sure.
And Star Trek, I mean, it sounds about like what you'd expect for a sci-fi movie, or I mean show. It's a sci-fi series. You know, Star Trek is both. It has the unique distinction of being both.
What I really like about the Star Trek one, The Next Generation, is how it sounds very space-like with that synth very early on, and it's very like dramatic sounding, right? Like, ooh.
It is.
And then he gets past like the monologue, and the horns just erupt in as like the title pops up in the title sequence.
Yeah.
And I just think that's a really good build.
It had a nice sense of dynamics to the Star Trek one, that's true. And what it came down to for me in this category is that, you know, The Crown was really good and nice, and it very much matched like a royalty feel. But after I turned it off, I felt like I would never, ever remember it. And Star Trek, I mean, at least it's got a melody. At least it's got some kind of memorable hook or moment that you come back to. So Star Trek's got to move on.
Yep.
It was close. This also was a close round here. Stranger Things versus Westworld. That was a tough call.
Really? For you?
I kind of thought so.
I don't remember it being a tough call. For me, it was Westworld all the way.
Well, I realized as we were putting this together that Stranger Things has one of the most boring title sequences in the world. It just shows you the letters of Stranger Things at different points. And
Yeah.
you're like, okay.
I think it sets the mysterious cryptid or mystery kind of vibe of the show.
It certainly does.
Like that 80s internet mystery. What's going on? Westworld has such... the beginning of Westworld gets a little boring, admittedly.
The first like minute was kind of rough.
It's only like 30 seconds, I would say. Maybe 40.
Sure.
It's just kind of the same thing over and over. But yeah, that kind of just like lulls you, and it's nice and quiet, very subdued, just kind of the same thing. And then it just builds into this complex sound that pulls you in.
Westworld definitely had a good dynamic contrast. And it did a good job of like repeating that little theme that it does. It's got some variation in there. Westworld was unique. Stranger Things, I think, really is. I mean, it maintains its same intensity level the whole way through, but it's got that perfect blend of like retro and very new.
Oh yeah, you and retro. We know how that goes.
Yeah, well, it just strikes a really good balance. I personally was not a big fan of the show Stranger Things. I only watched one season. I have seen the first 2 seasons of Westworld, but at the end of the day, I think
I still stand by season 1 of Westworld is the greatest singular season of any show I've ever seen.
And you've seen a lot of shows. I mean, you said you've seen almost all 64 on this bracket.
I've seen, and the ones that I haven't are honestly mainly in the dramas, actually. And then 1 or 2 in the crime/action. But I've seen pretty much all the sitcoms. I've seen all the stuff in the Southeast.
I think at the end of the day, the rise and the fall and the really intense instrumentals of Westworld was the winner for me.
I think so too.
I think it's the right pick. Up next is another pair of shows that I have not seen, Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Succession.
Succession is one of the few I haven't seen, actually, coming back to that conversation.
Well, there you go. I thought Succession was a really interesting theme. It was presidential, it was mysterious and like apocalyptic. It very much fit what I know about the show. Buffy the Vampire Slayer was very like 2003, like very punk rock, fast guitars. It was interesting. And to watch the title sequences, I mean, Succession felt like it was a moody piece that was setting me up to watch Succession. I felt like watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer was like a clip show of different clips of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but having seen neither show, it kind of fell a little flat for me.
Sure.
I don't have any nostalgia tied to it. I don't have anything like that, but it did.
For me, this was a minor dissenting opinion. There wasn't much debate on this one for us. I kind of defaulted to your choice of winner on this one.
Succession was the winner there.
I really enjoyed the punk rock, fast energy Buffy the Vampire Slayer theme song. The Succession one was good. It was interesting. I found myself more focused on the title sequence itself because it kind of made me want to watch the show than the theme song did, but...
Yeah, I'd agree with that about Succession. Buffy the Vampire Slayer did not make me want to watch Buffy.
Here's another thing that I feel like I should say, and we probably should have led with it somewhere towards the beginning, because I watch a lot of TV. I also watch a lot of TV theme songs. A lot of people use the skip button to skip, the intros to get back to the show or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I typically don't do that. I am very much watch through theme song and intros. I don't skip them very often. I enjoy watching them. And so a lot of these songs I've heard hundreds of times because I've watched hundreds of episodes of the shows.
Yeah.
And so I know them pretty well. So then when I come across one I don't, it's interesting.
It's probably got an uphill battle.
Yeah.
Against something you know a lot.
Yeah, and that's why I really didn't fight you too hard on Succession, because it was interesting, and I was maybe having a little bit of familiarity bias with Buffy.
Yeah, and it may also be a situation where, I don't know, you just have a good understanding of the vibe of the show when you've seen that much of it.
Yeah.
It's hard for me sometimes to match a theme song with the vibe of the show, knowing nothing about it.
You almost get to be a little objective and be like, just how is the song? Because I don't know anything about how good the show is or what the show's even about.
Yeah, and that's rough for the drama category.
Whereas I get the other opinion of, hey, I know what the show's about, and I know how well this theme works with the show or doesn't work with the show. We're kind of on the opposite sides of the coins we usually are in episodes.
It's true. And we get some instances later where you told me more about what the show is about, and it changed how I viewed the theme for it.
Sure. There are certain ones that drastically change how good the theme is if you know what the show is.
Yeah. Up next is the blank of blank round. Band of Brothers versus Game of Thrones. I mean, I've never seen either. Again, just to preface, listening to Band of Brothers made me sad. It sounds like the thing I should be sitting in at the end of the show, like feeling all these weighty emotions.
It's very patriotic, but very sad.
Yeah, I feel like it should be after the show.
Yeah, it should be like a credits song.
Yeah, and Game of Thrones, on the other hand, I mean, it gets me really excited to go punch a dragon. Like,
it really does.
It was so in-depth.
Game of Thrones is a very popular theme.
It seems to be.
Even people who don't like the show or haven't even seen the show know the Game of Thrones theme song.
Yeah, and I like the instrumentation on it. It starts smaller with a violin just doing the theme once, the melody, and then it repeats itself. And every time it repeats itself, it gets a little bigger and a little more intense. And I really, really enjoyed the Game of Thrones theme song. Definitely enjoyed it more than Band of Brothers, which is why Game of Thrones is the one that gets to move on.
Yep. And what was maybe, for me, the hardest matchup in this first round in the top left corner.
North left?
Nope.
As some would call it.
Yeah, the hardest round one Northwest matchup for me was West Wing versus Yellowstone.
West Wing versus Yellowstone actually was a bit tricky. I've seen about 15 minutes of Yellowstone and none of West Wing.
You've also seen about 15 minutes of West Wing.
Have I really?
Yeah, I made you watch West Wing, especially in its earlier seasons. Does a lot of really difficult and fantastic roaming camera scenes where like the whole scene is shot in one take as the camera just moves through doorways and follows the characters as they like walk the halls of the White House. And they're all shot with no cuts, and so the actors have to memorize all their lines and all this other jazz. And so I was describing that one time and fangirling about it, so I made you watch the opening 15 minutes of the first episode of West Wing.
Yeah, I didn't remember that, but I guess I do now. You're right. I do recall that. I thought Yellowstone... Here's my thoughts about that. Yellowstone, the show, is not like I expected Yellowstone, the show, to be.
Yeah, you were very much thought it was going to be a show about like Yellowstone, the park, and not Yellowstone, the farmland before the park.
Or even like cowboys in Wyoming. Like anything, I don't know, just legal drama I didn't expect. But the theme song for Yellowstone, I didn't think matched what I thought a theme song for a show called Yellowstone would be. However, I do think it matches what a show called Yellowstone that is like Yellowstone would be like. Does that make sense? For what the show ended up,
I know what you're going for, but I don't think it came across.
For what I think Yellowstone should have been, the theme song does not fit what I think a Yellowstone theme song should be.
But
for
what the show actually is, the theme song fits.
The theme song actually is okay.
Yeah.
But for West Wing, I mean, it's spot on. I mean, Hail to the Chief, it's presidential.
Spot on. So patriotic and presidential.
100%.
And it's just the upward stairs of the ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. Like, it's just exactly what you would expect.
It is. And honestly, Yellowstone was such a surprising disappointment, and West Wing was like, I don't know about the show, but West Wing in general, the theme song was very good. So West Wing is the moving on from that category.
I did not have the problem with Yellowstone, the show. I actually quite like Yellowstone, the show, and I really enjoyed the theme. It's very low. It's like in its scale, it's down here in like the bass instead of West Wing, which just kind of goes up the scale, not down.
Yeah.
And it's using, lower toned instruments in Yellowstone and all that. I really enjoyed the drama portion, like how dramatic and like foreboding the Yellowstone credit sequences. And so I was kind of fighting with those two opinions, but I also agree West Wing moves on.
Yeah, and I have to point out that it's the only instance in this entire corner of the bracket that wasn't an upset by the lower rated show.
I know.
Every single other lower rated show had a better theme song.
Well, 8 versus 9 doesn't really count as an upset.
No, that's true, but still, the point still stands. The lowest seeded show
kept winning.
Won every
really
time.
funny.
Yeah, it's a trend. But that said, it's round 2 time.
Twilight Zone versus Shameless.
Twilight Zone versus Shameless. This is where I kind of run into a bit of it's hard to separate the theme songs from the show. The Twilight Zone is such an older show that's like earned its timelessness.
Mm-hmm.
Shameless, I mean, it's a current show and it's popular. Will it be a Twilight Zone caliber show? I mean, no. Frankly, I can't even say that I doubt it. I just think no.
Frankly, the main character's name is Frank.
Oh, is it really? That's fun.
Yeah.
I thought the main character's name was Christine from The Phantom of the Opera.
Well, it depends on who you consider the main character.
Yeah. So, in the case of Twilight Zone versus Shameless, really what it comes down to is just what's memorable. You don't have to hear the Twilight Zone too many times to remember do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Whereas, I mean, I feel like I could watch a dozen episodes of Shameless and not know what that theme song is.
I disagree with that opinion.
I don't know. Well, what's your take on these two?
I'm actually not a big fan of the Twilight Zone theme song. I think it's iconic. I think the do-do-do-do-do-do-do, to me, it walked so other title themes could run, right?
Well, yeah.
Other shows would not be what they were if they weren't trying to build off of what Twilight Zone did.
That's true.
But because of that, Twilight Zone itself isn't the greatest. I don't know if it was on a podcast or if it was something else that you had that same sentiment about, where you were like, yeah, this is iconic, but other things have since done it better.
I think we run into those kind of problems on like Hank Williams and Elvis kind of episodes.
Yeah.
Where it's somebody who shifted the entire focus of a genre.
Yep.
But because they were the first.
Things like Stranger Things that lost out in round 1 based kind of its sound around the X-Files and Twilight Zone style theme song,
yes.
Right? I mean, like, other shows have taken that and been like, that's what we want to sound like. And it's because those were so iconic in their time that when you make something like it, it puts you in that mindset. And so, like, they're using the legacy of Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
But doing it better.
Sure. I mean, that's...
So to me, I think Shameless is a better theme song, but when we started really debating it and going back and forth, I conceded to letting Twilight Zone move on because of its legacy.
The Twilight Zone, it's one of the most iconic theme songs of all time. Best or worst? Yeah. For all those reasons, it's the granddaddy of TV theme songs.
It's the granddaddy of drama daddy.
Right. And if you're looking specifically at something that's dramatic, I don't think this Shameless theme song is particularly dramatic. It's chaotic.
You're right.
It's loud and it's up there, but it's not. I don't think drama when I hear it.
Drama is a big thing, right? This is a comedy drama versus a serious drama, right?
Right, sure. But the other thing to consider too is that Shameless is a song that someone wrote and made, and then they found it and attached it to the TV show, whereas the Twilight Zone was crafted for the product.
Yeah.
Now we got kind of a space thing going on with the X-Files and Star Trek. It's tough. It's a tough go at it here.
I found this one easier than the last one.
Really?
I think Star Trek is good. It's very space-like, but and maybe this is the fact that it's been memeified. The X-Files, to me, is a even more iconic sound than the Twilight Zone.
Well, we'll maybe get there.
And so to me, X-Files over Star Trek. There's been so many different Star Trek shows with so many different themes that I also just, other than the opening monologue of Star Trek.
The Final Frontier.
The Final Frontier part is the most iconic part of that theme song. It's not even the song. It's just the monologue.
That's true.
And so to me, I had no problem picking X-Files.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's the same thing with the meme status. Also, it helps the song break out of the TV theme barrier. And Star Trek, you're right, has had different iterations, different shows, and different theme songs. If it had a consistent one like Star Wars, maybe the story would be a little different. But just the X-Files, you know it, you love it.
You know it, you love it. You want some more of it.
It's got to move on. That's right. Up next is Westworld versus Succession. One we know and one we don't. And actually two shockingly similar theme songs, I thought. They just have a lot of similarities in how they sound and how they are constructed and orchestrated. What Succession's lacking is that dynamic build of Westworld. Starting small, building up into something huge is Westworld's biggest asset. And if nothing else...
I gotta stop.
Yes. And if nothing else, I think that would give Westworld an edge over Succession. For me.
I agree. Not only is Westworld Season 1 one of my favorite singular seasons of any TV show, it's also, I think, one of my top theme songs just to listen to. Not to get too far into spoiler territory, it may or may not move deep into the bracket based on what it goes up against and other opinions and yada, yada, yada.
But for you.
But as just if I had to pick theme songs to put on a playlist that I was going to listen to once a week, this would be the first thing I added.
Okay. Wow, the first.
It's really fun to listen to. It's longer form. It's almost like a full song in terms of its length.
True.
And so I think it'd be a good one to have to listen to over and over.
Thankfully, we don't have to. It's also a very interesting title sequence with everything getting dipped in milk.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
I forgot we dubbed it that, milk. The little robot goo. Yeah.
That's what it looks like. It's what it is. Anyway. So, Westworld's moving on between Westworld and Succession.
Yeah.
Sorry, Succession, you did not succeed.
You were cool, but yeah.
We had to move on.
Sorry.
Up next, current politics versus fantasy old-timey politics. Game of Thrones versus West Wing.
Another really tough matchup for me.
Yeah.
The bottom of this wing of the bracket really keeps giving me trouble. Game of Thrones, again, the minute it starts up, I'm ready to fight a dragon.
Yeah.
The minute West Wing starts up, I'm ready to be president. I don't know.
Be president? Sure.
I'm ready to work for the president. I don't know, because that's half of what the cast is. They're just the people working for the president.
Yeah, so you're right. I think they both do a great job at establishing a mood for their shows and putting you in that headspace, which is such a vital element of a TV show theme. But again, it comes down to memorability. And I think Game of Thrones has that extra little bit of memorable that West Wing kind of lacks. And it's because of that prevalent melody that they repeat and repeat and repeat.
After much hair pulling, I came to the conclusion that the building and the dynamic work of the same catchy melody in Game of Thrones beat out the presidential happy vibes of West Wing. So I also agreed Game of Thrones should move on.
Yeah.
I think it was really unfortunate that West Wing had to go up against Game of Thrones this early in the bracket. I think against a lot of other things in this wing, it would have beat out and went a little deeper. But sometimes that's just how the bracket goes. I think if it was on the opposite end of the bracket, there's a chance. It definitely makes it at least to the Sweet 16, if not even farther to the Elite Eight, and who knows how far.
I don't know. Well, you got the people of Rotten Tomatoes to blame for that.
Yeah, darn you, Rotten Tomatoes people.
And I have to point out here, the lowest ranking TV show won again? No, lost this time. It gets confusing when we've moved up a level. The Twilight Zone was 16, and it moved on.
Yep.
Shameless was lower than...
Westworld was higher. And Game of Thrones was lower. So it was 50-50.
50-50. Fitting. Nice. Well, we've got Twilight Zone versus the X-Files.
2 more matchups to figure out our 2 teams going into the Elite Eight.
Yeah, from the drama category.
Yeah.
Twilight Zone versus the X-Files is up first. Spacey, scientific, fictional.
Yeah, 2 themes cut from the same cloth.
Heavyweights in their genres. And it's a case where, again, like Twilight Zone walks so the X-Files could run. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You talked about it's the granddaddy of theme songs and sci-fi. The X-Files is the grandbaby of sci-fi, I guess.
I don't know. Even with X-Files age, it's probably more like the dad.
Yeah, you're right.
Or the fun uncle. I don't know.
I honestly pushed a lot for Twilight Zone here. I think
you pushed a lot for Twilight Zone.
I think it's hard to beat. I think it's really interesting and cool, and it's got that air of unease that the X-Files kind of just lacks for me. What ultimately sold me on the X-Files in this case was the melody. Twilight Zone has that do-do-do-do that repeats, but the X-Files has a really prevalent do-do-do-do-do, and it changes, and you follow that melody all the way through the duration of the song. So that gives it just a little special sauce, I think, maybe. I don't entirely agree. Slight dissent.
I think the age of Twilight Zone shows itself in this matchup. Again, going against its...
Descendant,
that's the word. Going up against its descendant, I think it shows its age a little bit. It's not as polished. The instrumentation isn't... It's not as fun to listen to. I think the X-Files gets the same vibe across, but is more fun to listen to, and that's why I pushed for it as hard as I did.
I think that's fair. It is, a close call in either case, but the X-Files is going to move on to the Elite Eight.
That's representative 1 for the dramas.
Welcome to the dance. Is that what they say? I don't watch a lot of basketball.
I can tell. You called it the top left.
Well, it doesn't. That's potato. Top left is a synonym for north right.
Yeah, but
top northwest. You got me all mixed up on my rights and lefts and ups and downs.
Game of Thrones versus Westworld.
That'll close out the drama.
2 fantasy shows. One is Wild West, but with robots. The other one is like Wild West, but with dragons.
You're right. Ironically, none of them is like Wild West. It's another hard matchup. I think Westworld is a nice theme song. I don't think you can discern, maybe, what kind of show Westworld is just from the theme song alone. Game of Thrones, on the other hand...
it's a fantasy show.
Epic. Yeah, you could tell right away.
It embodies fantasy.
Yeah.
And also, this is where I think the boring first 30 seconds as it builds... Like, it's worth it for the payoff in Westworld, but Game of Thrones just comes in instantly, like you said, with the violin version of it, that then they just build off of from the get-go. It's got that higher energy da-na-na-na-na-na that's driving it in the background as it's doing that violin piece. So like, I just think Game of Thrones hooks you from the first like phrase and holds you the whole time. Whereas Westworld is worth the payoff, but takes a moment to get there.
I think that's true, and I think Game of Thrones has to move on. It's tough because both of those have the same kind of dynamic changes and build and swell and instrumentation. So yeah, it really just comes down to like the nitpicky things, like the first 30 hooking you right away. It makes a big difference in this round of the competition.
Mm-hmm. But where are we headed next?
Yeah, we'll get to find out who wins between X-Files and Game of Thrones once we make it to the Elite Eight. We should cover some of the other rounds first. Where do you want to go next?
Well, I think we should finish out the North. Take a little break from the drama side of things and get a little fun with sitcoms.
Oh, that's a good idea. Sitcoms up next.
Sitcoms. So let's go through the list of what we got.
Well, of the sitcoms, I'm a sitcom watcher. That's my bread and butter.
Bread and butter.
I knew most of these. This is the part of the bracket, well, except for maybe the, southeast, that I'm the most familiar with.
Yeah.
And we had to make some hard cuts. This is when I got a lot of shows that didn't make it, and I was sad about it.
But we've got number 1 seed, I Love Lucy.
Yep.
Number 16 seed, Sex and the City. 3, Golden Girls. 14, MASH. 5, Seinfeld. 12, Scrubs. 7, Fresh Prince. 10, The Office. 8 is Curb Your Enthusiasm. 9 seed, Parks and Rec. 6 seed, It's Always Sunny. 11 seed, Community. 4 is Friends versus number 13, How I Met Your Mother. And number 2 seed, Cheers versus number 15, Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, it's a lot of sitcom here. I Love Lucy versus Sex and the City. This is a case where I've not really seen much I Love Lucy, but I mean, I know the theme song to I Love Lucy.
Yeah, who doesn't know the theme?
I clicked play and I was like, oh yes, this. Sex and the City, on the other hand, I haven't seen and did not know. The theme song was interesting. I don't think, for me, it trumps just the absolute icon of a theme song that is I Love Lucy. I mean, old theme songs just have this certain charm to them that I really, really like. And I Love Lucy is maybe the charmiest of them. Sex and the City versus I Love Lucy. Did you have any interesting thoughts?
I like the Sex and the City one. I mean, Sex and the City, it's a popular show. It's one I haven't seen all the way through. There's tons of seasons, and it varies in quality, and it just wasn't really for me. So I've seen some of it, not all of it. And yeah, it seems well good. It's no I Love Lucy. So it was easy to pick I Love Lucy for this one for me.
I Love Lucy, easy winner. Yeah. In this case, the higher ranking one moved on, unlike dramas.
Yeah. And here's something. So I bought a book that I'm really excited to read.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Inspired by all this work I've been doing into like listening to theme songs and like kind of researching the history of theme songs and stuff like that. And I came across this book called Music for Primetime, a history of American television themes and scoring.
Not a sponsor.
Yeah, not a sponsor.
It sounds interesting.
I thought it sounded very interesting. It's filled with like over 100 interviews of TV theme song writers, and each chapter focuses on a different TV genre: dramas, comedies, action, adventure, science fiction, fantasy, animation, news, documentaries, animated, stuff like that.
Right.
And so it's gonna be really interesting just to hear like these different composers who wrote theme songs and how they view writing a theme song, and if there's any like insight I gain that maybe would change some of my answers in this. I'm curious to find out.
Yeah.
But anyway, one thing that I've noticed just as a viewer is sitcoms specifically put a lot of energy into their TV themes. Like,
seems like it.
Like I found a couple articles while I was just researching stuff for this bracket that talked about how like the Friends theme song, which we'll get to in a little bit, like revitalized TV show theme songs for America. Like it was kind of a pattern of things where like people were making shorter and less interesting theme songs just to kind of get them out of the way and get back to the shows. And then Friends did this big iconic catchy song with a cool opening title sequence, and it revitalized the industry of TV show theme songs.
Yeah.
And I think that itself, because a sitcom did that, all other sitcoms that came after it were like, we've got to have a big catchy flashing theme song, you know? And
yeah.
And so I think as a genre of television, sitcoms get a lot more competitive with their theme songs than maybe some of the other genres do.
They do. Well, you saw how few of the drama theme songs even had words.
Yeah.
I mean, so few. And then we'll see that again with the crime shows and other kinds of shows. But the sitcom themes usually do have words and all kinds of other features. But yeah, Golden Girls versus MASH is next.
I mean, Golden Girls, iconic.
It is.
Thank you for being a friend.
MASH is one of the most iconic shows of all time. I would have replaced MASH with a better theme-songed show.
Well, so the reason I wouldn't let you do that is because every older person I interviewed and kind of polled and said, hey, what would you say is like a top-known TV show theme song? Every single older person I interviewed in their top 3 named MASH as a theme song that they knew.
Which is absurd to me. MASH was a horrible theme song.
Everybody knew it, apparently.
I watched it. Look, as a song goes, I guess it's okay, but it doesn't fit the vibe of the show in the slightest. Like, not even a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, have you seen the show? Is MASH one you've seen?
Not really, unless it's been on while I've been sitting waiting to get my teeth cleaned at the dentist. Like, no, I've never consciously watched an episode of MASH.
It is also one that I actually haven't seen, despite, I think, owning.
Well, as good of a show as MASH might be, I just thought the theme song didn't match what I thought the show would be. It didn't match the images going on during the title sequence.
It's another Yellowstone.
Yeah, it was very much another Yellowstone.
Gotcha.
I guess, where it just was not jiving.
What you expected.
Not even if it was really good though. Golden Girls is one of the best TV theme songs.
Oh yeah,
in a generation or two.
Yeah, anything that went up against Golden Girls in this first round was going to struggle.
And MASH just struggled exceptionally, in my opinion. Golden Girls, thank you for being a friend.
Thank you for having a good theme song.
Yeah. Now, this next round is one where we had to butt heads a little bit.
Dude, we butted heads hard.
This is maybe one of our top... We had to skip it and come back. Seinfeld versus Scrubs.
Spoilers, I guess a little, but we had to skip the next two and come back. These next two matchups were the last two we did in round one.
Yeah. Seinfeld, is one of the defining TV show theme songs of the 90s. It's got horns in it. It's got the funky bass. It is perfect for the zany vibe of the show and its characters. I think it's really interesting. Now, I haven't seen Scrubs. The Scrubs theme song surprised me. Now, I thought I'm No Superman was a really, really, really good song. I just don't know how well I liked it matching up with Scrubs, which, again, I haven't seen.
Again, I think part of that is just you haven't seen the show. I think it fits the show very well.
I guess.
Especially the way they cut to it. Scrubs is one of those shows that has an opening bit. It's not necessarily like...
Starts with a cold open.
Yeah, it has a cold open, right? Where they'll have some sort of setup for a joke that then pays off right before the title sequence. And sometimes is or is not related to what the rest of the episode will be. And I think that with the wacky stuff going on in the hospital fits the rock vibes of the song, and then the part of the song that they use, the I can't do this all on my own, I'm no Superman, fits the kind of the overarching character development of the show of all these different doctors that rely on one another to not only get through the day in the hospital but also to save people's lives.
Yeah, sure, I suppose.
And get up to all sorts of wacky actions in order to stay somewhat happy in a depressing environment. And so I think it fits very well, but in the end, after much debate, I finally conceded with a bit of a dissenting opinion to Seinfeld.
Seinfeld moves on. I thought, here's the thing about it. Seinfeld has become such an iconic theme song that people could just play any random notes on the bass and everyone will go, oh, it's kind of like Seinfeld.
I've never had that happen once, but I also don't play the bass, so
there you go. I did really like Scrubs, but it did have to lose for me. Up next was The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and The Office, another heated debate.
I thought there was a clear winner. You immediately disagreed with me.
No, I agreed that there was a clear winner.
Yeah, well, we were on the opposite end.
We just had different clear winners.
Yeah.
I thought The Fresh Prince, it, as an exposition, is an excellent theme song because you don't need to watch any of the older episodes of the show. If you watch the show and listen to the theme song, you instantly understand the entire premise of the show, which is really cool and very unique, honestly, to something like The Fresh Prince. The Office doesn't even have words.
It doesn't need words.
The Office is 4 chords repeated. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is a really interesting early hip-hop song with, some unique instrumentation,
but
some really cool production.
Talking about iconicness, you're talking about people who play notes on the bass and are like, oh, it sounds like Seinfeld. People learned the piano specifically to be able to play the Office theme song.
People rap the Fresh Prince all the time.
Never once heard the Fresh Prince rapped, other than when we did a version of it in the Mixtapers Halloween 13.
I'm just saying, and how cool is it that the lead actor in your sitcom performs the theme song?
Yeah, doesn't make it necessarily better.
No, I really still think that the Fresh Prince should be the clear winner here. But what we did is we did a little wheeling and dealing.
I finally conceded on Seinfeld if he conceded on The Office.
Yeah, and so my train of thought here was, I think the Fresh Prince deserves to win. But I think The Office deserves to win more than Seinfeld deserves to lose. So that was our trade-off.
Yeah.
We took The Office and we took Seinfeld. And we kind of disagree on it.
Yep.
Up next, Curb Your Enthusiasm versus Parks and Recreation. I did not realize I knew the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme song until I hit play, and I was like, oh, I've seen this in 800 memes.
It's another one that's been meme-ified.
Very much. It's cool musically. It's very interesting, and it's quirky.
Mm-hmm.
The little womp, womp, bump. There's a lot of weird little stops and bumps and stuff in Curb Your Enthusiasm that I really, really like, and it seems to fit. I don't know much about the show, but from what I do know about the show, seems to kind of line up perfectly. That said, though, Parks and Recreation is a crazy theme song. It's got this like march tempo to it. The snare drum is really cool. It's got this like sense of this dutifulness to it.
I don't think there's a single theme song in this wing of the bracket that embodies the character traits of the main character as well as Parks and Rec embodies the character traits of Leslie Knope.
No, the theme song is exactly like the character of Leslie Knope in song.
It could basically be renamed to Leslie's theme, you know, if we were doing this movie style where characters have themes.
I mean, I think the Fresh Prince does that too, but that's okay. Either way, I think Parks and Rec is just a really interesting song. It's got that little like whistle in it. The wind instruments are really good, giving it a nice melody. Whereas Curb Your Enthusiasm is kind of just a background instrumental. It doesn't really have a melody much.
Yeah.
It's just got music, and that's fine. But I think it's Parks and Rec all the way for me.
I agree.
Up next was an interesting one for us.
This was one that we agreed on, and I actually didn't expect us to.
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia versus Community.
So, Always Sunny. Let's start there.
It's Always Sunny is such a cool concept. The show and its humor is so irreverent and crass and like abrasive. And the theme song
is so nice.
Is so quaint and pretty and gentle. And I think It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia does an excellent job of leveraging that to their advantage.
Yeah.
With their cold opens and their cuts to title cards.
Yeah.
It almost becomes like the theme song is the punchline of some of their jokes.
Yeah. Because usually their cold open is almost more of the setup for the episode a lot of the times. Usually something wacky's happening during the cold open, but then wherever they end up with the cold open is they'll be like, horses are stupid, I could easily ride a horse, and then it's like cuts to the title of like, the gang gets ran over by horses, or whatever, and it always does a comedic cut to whatever the name of the episode is gonna be, based on what was just happening in the cold open.
It's true.
And when that cold cut happens and this really jaunty, nice music comes in over top of just the crassness that precedes it and follows it, it's very funny.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we just talked about how Curb Your Enthusiasm and Parks and Recreation totally fit the vibe of their show. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is so far in the opposite direction
that it works.
It achieves the opposite effect.
It comes full circle.
Exactly. But we also, I mean, it matches the title very well. It is Always Sunny in Philadelphia. You hear that theme, you see that title, and you're like, oh, nice.
Yeah, the title and the theme song fit each other very well. The show fits neither in a very funny way.
Which is what's great about it. Now, Community is a different beast altogether.
Yes.
The song for Community is pretty catchy. It's a nice song.
I love the song. Give me some hope. Da, 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 da.
It has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with the show.
Nothing to do with the show. Absolutely nothing.
The characters, the plot line.
Barely fits the vibe of any of the characters.
No.
The words have nothing to do with the show, and it's not a good theme song. It's a good song, not a good theme song.
I tend to agree.
But I know Community is one of your, at least recent favorite, of the ones you've seen recently.
I don't know about that.
You really got into it when you were watching it. I don't know.
I liked it.
So much so that you were like, you're the reason that I watched it, because you were talking about it so much.
That's true. I liked it. I thought it was funny, and I was glad that it's rare. As you can tell by this bracket, it's rare that I see something before Connor does. It's rare that I get to discover a show.
And he was like bragging to me about it, so I sat down and then I binge watched, like, got super far ahead of him. And then he started binge watching it so fast, he caught and passed me again. Like, we were like passing each other on this show as we were watching it simultaneously.
Yeah.
And to me, I got the sense that you really enjoyed it.
It has not aged well in my memory, I don't think.
Gotcha. Well, the last couple seasons struggled, but those earlier seasons
The gas leak seasons were a little rough. But the movie I'm excited about. Either way, we got to say goodbye to Community here.
Goodbye.
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is the theme song that deserves to move on.
Yep. And now, a huge matchup in round one here for the sitcoms. Two shows that the fan bases themselves get into heavy debates about which show is better. We've now got their theme songs going head to head. Friends versus How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah, I'm a big How I Met Your Mother fan. I've never seen Friends, and I don't plan to. And I don't think this is maybe as close to competition in the theme song department as you kind of do. I mean, Friends is the theme song of theme songs. You talking about it revitalized the whole genre. Everybody knows.
I was just getting ready to bring that back up.
Everybody knows the claps. Everybody knows Friends.
How many claps?
It's 4. You can't do 5, they'll get mad. even though it should be 5.
I don't know about all that. Yeah, no, Friends revitalized the genre. It's iconic. Everybody knows it. But man, do I love ba 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 da 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 da. Like, I really enjoyed the How I Met Your Mother one, and it was just sad to see it have to go up against the powerhouse Friends in round 1.
I don't know. I think How I Met Your Mother maybe could have beat a few of the losers so far, but I don't think it could beat any of our winners so far.
I probably would pick it over The Office.
Really?
Yeah, actually.
You wouldn't even take The Fresh Prince over The Office.
Well, yeah, because The Fresh Prince wasn't as good.
Whatever.
I would take How I Met Your Mother over The Fresh Prince, too.
Okay. Is that just because it was rap? You seem to have a rap thing.
How dare you? I love rap.
Even after last week, I don't know. But yeah, I think in the challenge of Friends versus How I Met Your Mother, it's not much competition to say that Friends moves on. Sorry, How I Met Your Mother.
Sorry, How I Met Your Mother.
Maybe next time. Up next is another really curious round. Cheers versus The Big Bang Theory.
So Cheers is another one that was in a lot of my older people's top 3.
Of course, because it has to be. It's so rare to find a song that's so specifically about the show and yet so generally a good song. And Cheers hits both those things. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. Like, everybody knows that.
Yeah.
A lot of people know that. I won't say everybody. It's not like ubiquitous, but Cheers is excellent. I also am really impressed by The Big Bang Theory. They cover a lot of historical ground in about 20 seconds. And it's very fun. It's very rocky, but it's kind of what it is, you know? I don't know. It's impressive, and I got to give it a strong commendation. I think it's done well. It's a good theme song, but I can't pick anything but Cheers here.
Cheers is the clear winner.
Sad but true, but not sad, and still true. Cheers it is. That takes us into round 2 of the sitcoms. I Love Lucy versus Golden Girls.
Yep. Where are you at for this one?
This one feels still like a no-brainer to me.
I tend to agree.
I could have told you the Golden Girls theme song before I looked it up. I couldn't have told you the I Love Lucy one before I played it again. And that's maybe just because I haven't seen either, so I guess that argument's null and void before I even make it. But Golden Girls, thank you for being a friend. It's out there. It's got covers. It's
another one that from the beginning with the way the drums hit and the instant thank you for being a friend. Like, you're in it. Whereas I Love Lucy, it's good. It just doesn't draw you into the world of the show nearly as fast, in my opinion.
No, I think you're right. Golden Girls wins that matchup pretty handily. Now, in the case of Seinfeld versus The Office, I'll admit this is a bit tougher. Kind of a closer head-to-head here.
I agree. 2 instrumentals, 2 very known, catchy instrumentals at that.
Yeah.
Both with big fan bases behind their shows.
It's true. I think this one comes down to the vibe of the show. Seinfeld's the wacky, quirky one, and The Office, I mean, to listen to the piano in The Office, I just don't know if it conveys the style that The Office is going for as closely as Seinfeld matches.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely think the wacky vibe is more apparent with Seinfeld than The Office. But the things that did it for me on this one was the uniqueness of the Seinfeld instrumental versus, like you said, the same 4 chords on the piano of The Office.
Yeah.
And the fact that, I mean, I wanted Scrubs to win the Seinfeld-Scrubs matchup, and I would have picked Scrubs over The Office, so therefore, if Seinfeld beat Scrubs, Seinfeld should also beat The Office. So I kind of played that game.
Kind of a logical fallacy, but sure.
I mean, it's a logical fallacy in, like, the sports world, because anything can happen any day, right? But in this one, where I'm just picking favorites, I think it's less so.
Sure. Parks and Recreation versus It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Both really good.
This is another one that surprised me on what you picked.
Really?
You were a big, especially when we were debating this and picking the results, you went hard on talking about Parks and Rec and how much it embodied Leslie Knope and yada, yada, yada.
It does. It's an excellent theme song. It's so perfect.
And while we talked about It's Always Sunny, it was kind of a clear winner of Community, so I didn't get as much of a vibe on that one from you.
Yeah, well, for me, in the matchup of Parks and Rec versus Always Sunny, it has to be It's Always Sunny.
Yeah.
It is so powerful the way they leverage it as a joke. I also really love, just as a side note, another little edge that Sunny has over Parks and Rec is they use that theme song to make nice little stinger transitions for their establishing shots and other like incidentals. So I think it's versatile in that way too.
Yeah, it's a good example of why a TV show theme is different from just a normal song, because you got to use it with your show and have it make sense with your show.
Yeah.
And so It's Always Sunny gains a little bit of clout because of how they use it versus Parks and Rec, which is a good song and embodies the character, but outside of giving us the names of the actors, there's not much it can do.
Not a ton, no. Yeah, It's Always Sunny is the winner for me. And these songs are just so fundamentally opposite. One's punchy, one is long and slow and legato, like really distinct. But it's just the way that they incorporate it as a joke. The theme song is a part of the show as much as anything. So that's cool. Friends and Cheers is a round that I hate to see happen.
Yeah, when I said Friends versus Cheers, you went, oh no!
I hate to see it. I really like the Cheers theme a lot. I've only seen a couple episodes of Cheers, maybe half a season. And like I said, I haven't seen any of Friends, but Cheers is so comfy. Cheers is inviting and welcoming and nice. Friends is also nice. It's also good. It just doesn't have the same.
There for you if it rains.
I just don't get into it in the same way as I get into the Cheers song.
Yeah.
But
I think that's probably would be opposite for a lot of people in your generation. But maybe it's because a lot of people haven't seen Cheers.
I think you might be right. Maybe. But I think in this case, you can't not, once again, take Friends.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, especially in our generation, if you start singing the Friends theme song when you get to the claps, everybody anywhere hearing you see it immediately starts clapping, right? Everybody knows it.
Well, way more than Cheers. And sometimes you want to go where everybody knows the Friends theme song. That's sad. It's sad. But we're down to the Sweet 16 of sitcoms. We've got Golden Girls versus Seinfeld.
Indeed.
This is the point where I had to be objective, and I had to let Seinfeld go a little bit.
I mean,
I realistically don't think Seinfeld can beat the Golden Girls.
Seinfeld's another one that I would put in, if I was trying to name your top sitcoms, I would put Seinfeld probably in that top list.
I actually really enjoyed it once I realized that Jerry Seinfeld is the worst part of the show. Before that, I was like focused on him, and I was like, man, it's not it. But it's not Jerry.
He's just there.
He's the straight man.
Yeah, he's the straight man for all the wacky things happening around him, which makes him the least interesting part of the show.
Exactly. And when I shifted my focus to the Georges and the Kramers and the Elaines, that's when the show really started to take off.
Yeah.
I really like Seinfeld a lot. But it's not about the show, it's about the theme. And Golden Girls just slam dunks.
Just slamming it.
All over Seinfeld.
Them old ladies, they know how to do a theme.
Yeah. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia versus Friends. This one, it's another moment you gotta just admit.
The powerhouses are the powerhouses for a reason. I mean...
Yeah, there is just I can't really explain exactly why, but there's no world in which It's Always Sunny should be labeled a better theme song
than Friends. Yeah.
It just shouldn't happen.
And so we didn't let it happen. Friends moves on.
We didn't. Friends and Golden Girls are going to go head-to-head in our Elite 8 in just a little bit.
Yep.
Well, that's the sitcoms. It was a tough round.
Sitcoms are super competitive. I think it's the most competitive of the four. I mean, there's a reason we had to skip it and come back.
Should we head down to Crime and Action?
I think we go back to Crime and Action now.
That seems like a good idea.
South left, as some might call it.
I call it Bottom West.
Oh, Bottom West. Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that Batman? Isn't he the guy that played Batman in the 1960s? Well, as far as Crime and Action go...
Yeah, give us the rundown. What's in this one?
This was a really interesting one. I've seen so few of these, too. It was just like drama, but the theme songs are a little better than drama.
Wait, we determined you'd seen, I think, 3?
3, yeah. We've got Breaking Bad. We've got True Detectives. Then we've got The Wire versus Law and Order. We've got Psych versus Sherlock. We've got Monk versus Ozark. We've got Suits versus NCIS. We've got Peaky Blinders versus Fargo. We've got Mindhunter versus Dexter. We've got The Sopranos versus Blue Bloods.
Indeed.
That's our Crime and Action. Some iconic shows in here. And then some that I've never heard of, like Peaky Blinders. Never, ever heard of it. But up first, it's Breaking Bad and True Detectives. I have seen all of Breaking Bad. I've seen none of True Detectives.
Yeah, True Detectives is one. There's a lot of these crime shows that I've seen bits and pieces of. I haven't sat down and watched the whole thing.
Yeah. True Detectives, what it boils down to for me was just unmemorable.
Yeah.
Even sitting here right now, I can't remember True Detectives too well.
I literally was just thinking the same thing. I was like, shoot, which one was True Detectives?
Yeah. And Breaking Bad, I mean, it's different. It's suspenseful.
We made fun of it a lot when watching it.
Intense. We did make fun of it because it sounds like smacking a kickball. You know what I mean? That little plunk sound that you get when you smack a rubber dodgeball. Breaking Bad kind of makes a sound that sounds like that. Reminds me of that. But either way, I think it fits the style of the show really well, and it's not as cookie cutter as True Detectives. And so, Breaking Bad, for its uniqueness and its just energy, I think has to move on. The Wire versus Law and Order. I've heard so many people say The Wire is such a great show.
The Wire? Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen it. I also haven't seen Law and Order. But as soon as I clicked play on the Law and Order theme song, I was like, yes, I've heard this probably 150 times. I mean, it's transcended not even music, it's transcended audio. Like, people just put dun dun in text and just start doing the Law and Order theme song in text. Like, it's inescapable. The Wire was a really good title sequence, I thought. It made me curious, and it made me want to watch The Wire. Law and Order, the title sequence didn't make me want to watch Law and Order.
Really?
But the theme song, wow. For me, it's Law and Order.
Crime shows really aren't your thing.
No, not much.
Even like comedy, like I've been trying for years to get James to watch Psych because it's like a comedy crime show that really cares. Like, of all crime shows that exist, Psych probably cares the least about the actual crime portion of the show. That's more the backdrop for what the heck the characters are getting into. But I still can't get him to even watch that. So he really is not into crime shows.
I've never even tried. It's true. I did watch almost 2 seasons of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which isn't a crime show at all, but still fell off of that one.
Yeah, it's another one that is a crime show, but really not.
Right, exactly.
It's actually, Brooklyn Nine-Nine is even less of a crime show than Psych is. At least Psych has like a crime of the week.
Right. What did you think about The Wire and Law and Order?
Oh, Law and Order, easy. This was the easiest wing of the bracket for me to fill out. I had virtually no problems.
Okay. What about Psych versus Sherlock? I know you had no problems with this one because you just said Psych was your favorite.
Yeah, Psych's one of my favorite crime shows.
I thought Sherlock is just way too much. I've never seen either show. Sherlock just seemed way too dramatic and way too intense and way overbearing.
Yeah, it was trying to be more than it should have been.
Yeah.
Although the show's really good.
Sure, I'm sure it is. Psych was really fun. It's a good show for a comedy. You know, I like the way that they punctuate it with the title in the lyrics, and it was really a catchy chorus. The verse, I take it or leave it, but Psych was really interesting, and I absolutely have no problem putting it in over Sherlock.
Yep.
Monk versus Ozark was next. What I gathered was that Ozark doesn't really have much of a song.
Yeah.
It just has a variety of theme sounds, kind of.
Theme sounds with different like images for each episode. And...
Yeah, which maybe it's a good show, I don't know, but I just wasn't captivated by it.
I liked Ozark as a show, but I felt like it was like trying to capture the magic of Breaking Bad and not doing it as well. I actually don't even know which one came out first, but I assume Breaking Bad.
Sure. Well, Monk is one of the shows where I thought the theme song was okay, but then you explained it to me.
You really weren't that into it.
No, I wasn't.
And then I had to explain it to you, yeah.
Once you explained Monk to me, I was all in. And the theme song, Randy Newman, It's the Jungle Out There, it became a lot better. And it's been in my head for the last couple of days, and I can't get over how perfect of a song it is for Monk, just as a concept, having never seen it.
Yeah, for those who have not seen the show and also are wondering what this magical revelation was, Monk is a show about like a detective who's like the world's like greatest detective, right? He like is super deductive, picks up on clues that most people would miss, but he's kind of nerfed by the fact that he is virtually got every phobia that is known to man. He's afraid of everything, has to have a personal assistant to help him even live his life, and so he struggles and gets into these wacky situations during his crime cases due to those phobias.
Yeah.
And so a song that's all about how the world's going to kill you because it's a jungle out there and everything's dangerous is perfect for that show.
Yeah. So I had no qualms about moving Monk on to the next round.
Yep.
Putting it head-to-head with Psych, eventually. I really liked Monk. Randy Newman, you can't beat him. Such a unique voice, such an interesting character. And the song is just so curiously constructed. A lot of interesting piano runs and chord changes, and it's cool. See, he's singing it right now.
It's a jungle out there.
Suits versus NCIS was interesting.
Seen both shows?
Yeah, I've seen neither.
Suits is a show that has come up at least once, if not twice, on this podcast already.
Yeah, it has.
I don't know if you realize that.
Well, that's got Kaleo in it, right?
It's got Kaleo, and then it came up one other time with a song that was featured in Suits, and I was like, how do I know this? And then I looked it up. And
yeah, for sure. I have not seen Suits, and the title sequence made me want to never watch Suits. Just something about it just did not seem like it would be my thing. NCIS, you know, we talked about how so many of these shows are just the same show with different characters, right? True Detectives and Law and Order, and just so many of these crime shows tend to be like the same show. And I think NCIS is interesting because it actually tries to do something different and succeeds. Whereas like True Detectives kind of felt like it was trying to do something different and just fell flat. I think NCIS succeeded really, really well in kind of still giving me crime show vibes, but setting it apart enough to know that it's a little different.
For me, this one was easy because to me, Suits gets the Community treatment where it's an okay song. It's a good song, but it just doesn't fit the show at all. The whole song is about like doing the greenback boogie, which is like doing what it takes to get money, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not really what the show about. The show's not about this lawyer who wants to be rich. It's about a dude who doesn't have a law degree and cons his way into working for one of the most prestigious law firms in New York. Like, it just doesn't fit what the show's about.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Either way, it's NCIS has to move on.
Yeah.
Peaky Blinders versus Fargo was interesting. I've heard a lot of people talk about Fargo really positively, so maybe I need to give it a try. Peaky Blinders I've never heard of, but I did see in that title sequence that it's Cillian Murphy.
Yeah.
Oppenheimer's in it, which is cool.
Scarecrow's in it.
I liked the song for Peaky Blinders. It just kind of was this weird aesthetic disconnect from what I was seeing on the screen versus
What the song was.
what I was hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was interesting, and like the little pops and flashes were really cool, but I don't know.
Peaky Blinders is actually a show I'm working my way through right now, and so it's one I'm less familiar with, but I'm like decently far into it, so still heard it a lot.
Sure.
And Fargo is another one on the list. It's one of the few on the list I haven't seen, and I kind of want to see it now, again, kind of based off of the theme.
The theme song was really cool.
It intrigued me.
I liked in Fargo is, again, the dynamic contrast where the first minute is a little bit rougher and maybe boring even, but then you pass a certain point and everything starts to pick up, and that is what set Fargo above for me. Mindhunters and Dexter was up next. Mindhunters, just again, one of the worst title sequences I've maybe ever seen.
I don't know. I liked it.
Not even for the song, just in general. I watched Mindhunters. I couldn't tell you what Mindhunters is about after the title sequence.
Yeah, Mindhunters is not a show for you. I think it's a really good show. It was super popular on Netflix. Fans to this day like still fill out petitions trying to get them to revitalize it after COVID kind of killed it. Super popular show. Theme song, decent, but it's just no Dexter.
Dexter was an incredible title sequence. How they made everything kind of look serial killery, like murderous. They made mundane stuff seem really grotesque.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting. I was captivated by it. Beyond that, the song for Dexter was really interesting.
I also think Dexter's another potential entry point into the world of crime shows for you. Just because, yes, it's got crime of the week aspect going on, but you're following the show from a serial killer's point of view, which is really intriguing and unique. And so it is another one that I think it, Psych, and Monk are your three best chances of finding a crime show that you would actually watch. I think anything outside of those three that I've seen, you would just not be a fan of.
Maybe. I like Breaking Bad. That's on the list. I don't know.
Well, yeah, but that's more under the it's more of a crime action series, right? It's not a crime show in the sense of like, hey, when I say crime show, people usually refer to the crimes of a week with a set cast solving crimes. That's like crime shows. And then action, Breaking Bad would probably fall more into the action part of this category.
Sure. Well, I have to say, I kind of am intrigued by some of the shows in this last bracket. It's The Sopranos versus Blue Bloods.
I know you were intrigued by The Sopranos. I assume you were not intrigued by Blue Bloods.
We'll get to it, but first of all, The Sopranos. I know it's a mafia show. I know nothing beyond that. I started that theme song and I was like, oh, what's this? Like, this is strange. This is really different. And I really liked the sequence, like, him driving the car, and the music was really cool and really interesting, and I thought it was awesome. It's just one of the best title sequences in these 64. So maybe I need to give The Sopranos a try.
Sure.
That doesn't mean the rest of the show is good just because the title sequence was awesome, but who knows?
No, Sopranos, I mean, it's a popular show for a reason. It's very good.
Yeah.
A lot of people really like The Sopranos.
Now, Blue Bloods, on the other hand, I thought looked like another cookie-cutter cop show. It looked like maybe the most boring show, the most milquetoast kind of thing in the world, but the theme was incredible.
Very patriotic again.
The theme was patriotic, sure, but it had this certain style to it. It was heroic, was a word we used to describe it a lot.
Heroic. Made you want to like jump in the line of fire to save a comrade, a friend.
Yeah, and the way that it builds into itself, like, it gives me enough of that song. It gives me a lot of that song in like its short little 20 seconds. And then it leaves me wanting more because it just ends with the da-da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, wait, that's it? Like, the hard stop is really satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, as much as I think The Sopranos is a better title sequence and kind of indicative of a better show,
I think the Blue Bloods theme song. Yeah.
Blue Bloods by far has the better theme.
Yeah.
really impressive theme song. Well, that loops us back around to round 2 here. Breaking Bad versus Law and Order.
The iconic sound of Law and Order. Like I said, you haven't seen the show, you hit play, you went, oh, I know this.
Totally.
And I mean, Breaking Bad is interesting, but it's not that interesting.
No, I don't think it's that big a surprise that Law and Order would move on over Breaking Bad.
Psych versus Monk is another How I Met Your Mother Friends matchup where they're two very passionate communities that overlap significantly.
It's another instance where we disagreed.
And battle about which show is better. And it's another one where, yeah, we disagreed. You were on Team Monk, I was on Team Psych.
Yeah, I think you were biased by it just being one of your favorite shows.
I don't know. I'm a fan of both shows pretty heavily. And what I said it came down to for me was, again, because I don't skip theme songs a lot of the times. I've heard a lot of these over and over. I'm always jazzed to listen to Psych. And a lot of it's with that opening guitar, the da-da-da-da-da, that just gets you, and the drums that build up into that first hit of the lyrics. Just really get you psyched up to listen to that one.
Yeah, psyched.
Whereas Monk, I think the Randy Newman style hurts it a little bit with, like, if you're binging the show, where you're like, all right, Saturday is Monk Day, I'm going to sit down and just watch Monk for like 10 hours, you know?
Yeah, sure.
Have a Monkathon. You're like tired of the theme song after a couple of listens. For me, personally. And so that's why I wanted to give it to Psych.
I guess maybe. I really liked Monk. I liked Randy Newman's voice, and I liked the different flavors and styles in the song. I mean, Psych was a cool song. It kind of falls a little flat. Like, the vocal isn't as polished. The guitar's not as intricate as the piano playing. And I thought Monk maybe should have been the winner here. At the end of the day,
we did another little wheel and deal.
We did, and you decided to steal this one for Psych.
Yep.
But I acquiesced because I wanted things later on.
That we'll get to.
Yeah. NCIS versus Fargo. Tougher than either of the matchups for both of these songs before.
One thing that we discussed when picking these was that NCIS, you know, it has like this new age sound to it. They're like, I'm a different kind of crime show, you know, like I'm upbeat, you know, like the Law and Orders are very serious, very dramatic, dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
You know, whereas NCIS is like, ooh, look at me, I'm high energy, do 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 do, you know, having fun with it. So I think NCIS pulls that off very well, to the point that other shows that have come out since NCIS has come out have tried to copy that vibe and have failed, I think.
Yeah.
And so I wanted NCIS to move on.
Again, impartial, I've seen neither show. I thought Fargo maybe was the better, like, instrument song. I think it was produced really well, and it sounds crisp and good and clean. But I think NCIS has a certain staying power. Like, I could listen to NCIS almost like you talk about, like an a-thon situation.
Mm-hmm.
I could listen to NCIS a lot more than I could listen to Fargo.
I mean, NCIS is a show that's just on all the time on cable TV for people to just put on in the background. So, like,
it's true.
It could literally just be on in the background as a song.
Yeah, and it's a tough call, but I think NCIS has to move on. Which brings us to Dexter and Blue Bloods.
That heroicism
is pretty heroic. I think Dexter is a song that shows you its entire hand right up front.
Yeah. And it's heavily enhanced by its intro as well.
Yeah, by the visual going on.
If you remove the visuals from Dexter, the song takes a bit of a hit.
Yeah, whereas I think Blue Bloods is the opposite, and the song is boosted by being isolated from its visuals.
Yeah.
Which is kind of backwards.
Yeah, I think if you remove the clip showiness of the Blue Bloods intro.
Just everybody fading in dramatically.
Yeah.
Like, portrait style. I don't know.
Yep.
Blue Bloods just really stuck with me as a theme song, and it's been in my head since we started making this bracket, and for me, that's absolutely why Blue Bloods had to move on. We're circling back around to our sweetest of 16s, Law and Order versus Psych. Finally, I think something that can eliminate Psych in your eyes.
Yeah. I love Psych. It's great. I think it's a great song. One thing I don't know if I'd mentioned yet was that the director wrote, like the creator of the show.
Of Psych.
Yeah, the creator of Psych. He also has a band that wrote and performed the theme song for the show.
Pretty remarkable.
And so I think that's a really cool fact. It's great. But it's no dun 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 dun.
Big time.
So there's no beating that in at least this section here that we're in.
At this stage, nothing can top Law and Order yet. Yeah, Law and Order's gonna finally eliminate Psych. Law and Order, to be fair, it would have eliminated Monk too. NCIS versus Blue Bloods is different. We have a couple different...
2 crime shows.
Yeah, these feel very similar in style.
Both more modern. Both still running, I believe.
Are they? Wow.
I know NCIS still is, and I believe Blue Blood still is. That's one that I've seen in and out of. I know people who watch it, and I've seen it on.
Sure.
But I've never really followed it.
Well, what do you think about the theme songs for each?
I think at this point, Blue Bloods overstays its welcome in terms of it gets a little high on its horse for this late in the bracket for me.
Okay.
It's trying to almost be too heroic and being like, yes, look at me. I am the definition of civic duty and heroicism, and I am awesome and must impart my wisdom upon thee.
Like it's infallible?
Yeah, exactly. Whereas NCIS is just like, ooh, look at me. I'm a really cool, hip, awesome show with a cranky old seasoned cop and a young guy who gets smacked on the head a bunch because he says dumb things, and a geeky dude and a hot chick, and we're gonna go solve crimes. Woo, look at us.
Okay.
That's basically the formula for most of the seasons of that show.
I don't know. I was thinking about this one, and I wish Blue Bloods could stick around a little longer, and it just doesn't. I just think NCIS takes it. So that means from the southwest corner in the Elite Eight, we'll see Law and Order up against NCIS in a maybe predictable matchup of the best crime show theme songs. Well, that takes us to our last quadrant of the bracket, and it's kind of our catch-all quadrant, like that one field in the Grammys is.
I mean, they're all a little related to one another. Animated and children kind of go together, and game show and reality TV kind of go together.
Yeah, but it's animated, it's game shows, it's reality TV, and it's kids shows, and we try to evenly pick
4 each.
Roughly like 4 from each. So it's tough, and some of them could overlap with other categories. You know, The Simpsons could have been a sitcom, or like,
yeah,
etc. But this is just how it shook out. We've got Jeopardy and The Price is Right going against each other, and Family Feud and Let's Make a Deal, as far as game shows go. Survivor up against Hell's Kitchen, and The Bachelor versus Real Housewives for reality TV. The Simpsons versus Rick and Morty, and Invincible versus Attack on Titan for animated. And for children's shows, we picked Avatar: The Last Airbender versus SpongeBob SquarePants, and Phineas and Ferb versus Bluey.
And again, part of what happened here, I tried to give an even split within those genres, right? Because I could have picked like all game shows for the reality TV, right? Survivor, Big Brother, Amazing Race, stuff like that. But there's so many other types of reality TV that I didn't want to leave out. So I picked a game show, a cooking show, a love finding show, if you will, and then just like a standard reality TV show that's like following just people in their lives, right? And then same thing in like the animated. I could have picked all things like Simpsons, Family Guy's a popular one in terms of theme song, things like that. But I didn't want to pick all the same style there. So I wanted to give a nice breadth of different types of animated shows. And so that's why we went with what we did here.
Mm-hmm. Up first is Jeopardy versus The Price is Right. I love you, The Price is Right.
Yeah.
Jeopardy is one of the most iconic 30 seconds in television music. I don't know.
I mean, yeah. It's synonymous with waiting at this point. Anytime you're waiting on somebody to make a decision or do something, you just start going do, 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 like at them, mocking them for taking so long. I mean,
it's true.
It's synonymous with waiting at this point.
I mean, to be fair, if I was trying to get someone to guess the price of the showcase, I also would probably start singing The Price is Right. So it is situational.
I don't know.
Not really.
When has that ever happened?
It hasn't, but if it did, I would.
Okay.
The Price is Right is a great one, though, and it's deserving of being on this list, and it is deserving of going up against something that's not Jeopardy in the first round, but it can't.
Something that maybe doesn't deserve to make it on this list, but did anyways. Let's Make a Deal. Kind of the worst of the 4 here.
Oh, Let's Make a Deal versus Family Feud. Let's Make a Deal kind of is the least memorable of the game show themes here.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Let's Make a Deal's theme song. Like the show a lot.
It's true, but even independently of Let's Make a Deal, I am a big fan of the Family Feud theme song.
Yeah,
it's pretty catchy. It's pretty great. It's a lot of fun, and it just makes me want to clap along.
Yeah.
I mean, just like everyone does in the audience. You got to get into it.
Uh-huh.
It's snazzy.
So Family Feud, moving on there.
Yeah, it is. Survivor versus Hell's Kitchen. I think Hell's Kitchen has been through a couple different theme song iterations.
Yeah, depending on the season, its theme song has changed a little bit, and I think that hurts it a little bit as well, because you kind of had to just pick one.
Yeah, it's your brand.
Whereas Survivor has had a classic theme song, I mean, since its creation over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's so popular. I mean, name a theme song that had to go away due to time constraints, but was brought back due to the demanding of the fans.
The fans wanted it and they loved it.
So much so that when it was gone, the people on the game show were singing it on the beach because they missed it so much.
It's true. I think Survivor's a really unique case where the show I mean, for a long time took place in totally different locations.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so much was different about each season, but they managed to get a theme song
that fit.
that was universal enough that it could apply to all those scenarios. And it was really interesting.
And it just had a sense of adventure to it, right? When you get the and all that, and you get into it, when you get into the instrumental part with the do, 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 and it goes like all crazy with the instruments, that it just has such a adventurous spirit that it fits any landscape that you could be adventuring or exploring, you know, which is kind of what the show is going for, especially in its earlier seasons. Like, we're just going to abandon people in these weird places and see if they can survive. Half the episode was them just exploring the world around them. Like, it fits so well. It still does, even in the new era.
Yeah. Survivor's the winner over Hell's Kitchen with its inconsistent theme.
Oh, yeah.
The Bachelor versus Real Housewives. I don't think The Bachelor has a really consistent theme either. And I've never watched either of these shows or any of their variants.
I used to watch The Bachelor with my mother and sister back in like high school. It was like a thing they'd always watch, so I'd get sucked into it. Here's another thing about me, audience. I can watch anything.
I believe it.
I mean, my mother used to get so annoyed when I'd be getting ready for school. Because, like, if anything's on the TV, I just, next thing you know, I'm sucked into it and I'm sitting on the couch watching it. And it'd be like, we'd be getting ready for school and she'd turn on the news to, like, learn about the weather and get the, like, news updates for the day and, like, traffic reports. And next thing you know, instead of, like, packing my book bag and eating breakfast, I'm just sat on the couch watching some story about something that happened in the news in the local area, you know?
Yeah.
And she's like, why are you watching the news? Like, this is supposed to be boring to kids. Go get ready for school. I just get sucked into anything.
That explains a lot.
And so I got sucked into The Bachelor as well when they'd be watching it. Real Housewives, I haven't seen, but actually I've been watching a new reality show called The Traitors that has made me want to watch The Real Housewives.
Oh, let me know how that goes. I thought the Real Housewives theme song actually was really interesting and kind of perfect for the show.
Uh-huh. Having not seen it, it fits the vibe of what I expect the show to be.
Yeah, it's very poppy and glittery, but like it's got a bite to it. I really liked it.
Yeah.
And I mean, we found a theme for The Bachelor. It was okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. It didn't blow me away. Real Housewives was at least a little memorable, so we decided it should move on.
Yep.
The Simpsons versus Rick and Morty.
Another pretty easy one.
You know, they did a crossover even, but it is a pretty easy one. Rick and Morty has a fun title sequence with sometimes scenes that didn't even make it into the show, that they just made for fun to do a head fake. The Simpsons, though, I mean, with their recurring bits, with their chalkboard, with the couch gags, with the saxophone solos, I think the Simpsons theme song is really varied in terms of like a title sequence, but it's also just iconic, and it certainly has to beat Rick and Morty.
Yep.
Invincible versus Attack on Titan. I've never watched Attack on Titan. I've never even heard of Invincible. This was a new one for me, and it was really interesting.
Yeah, I couldn't believe you had never heard of it.
Yeah, I don't know, I hadn't. It was a really jaunty superhero theme, which was cool. I just don't think it had an invincible quality to it. Blue Bloods, for crying out loud, sounded more invincible than Invincible, whereas Attack on Titan was really interesting. It was heavy, it went hard, it was emotional and intense, and I think it really added a lot to the atmosphere of what I expect the show to be. In a way that Invincible kind of just tries to reflect its show, I think Attack on Titan actively enhances it.
Yeah, I think Invincible is a really good superhero theme for a superhero show. I think it's good, but I think that's all it's trying to be is, hey, we're a superhero show. Let's make something that sounds superhero-like. Whereas I think Attack on Titan just sets you up like we haven't seen the show, know nothing about the show, but it like gives you opinions on what you think the show is going to be about just watching the opening scenes or the opening title sequence and listening to the music.
And it seems relentless. Attack on Titan looks brutal. I mean, everything in that is like an explosion or a skeleton.
It does. It doesn't look like there's a happy moment in that show. It's just like, boom, army walking in. It just did not look like a happy show.
It was intense, but it was captivating, and I think the theme song has to move on.
Yeah, I agree.
But I did realize, I've seen a lot of memes from and inspired by Invincible. That's what watching that gave me.
Yeah. You just had no idea.
Well, you never know. Up next in the children's section,
two iconic shows.
Avatar: The Last Airbender versus SpongeBob SquarePants. Two shows that I unironically enjoy as an adult.
Two Nickelodeon shows going up against each other.
Yeah, this is a Nickelodeon leg. Avatar: The Last Airbender has one of the best opening monologues of any show, bar none. Everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked.
I mean, again, another memeable phrase.
It's true. Yeah, I really loved Avatar. I think it's another instance where they do a good job during the title sequence of explaining the entire premise to you. If you've missed anything, instantly you're caught up. SpongeBob is a fun title sequence. It invites you to sing along,
Yeah.
which none of these others do. It's very nautical, which is unique among every other theme song on this list. It's specific to the show. It tells you about the character. It uses interesting vocabulary words like porous and nautical nonsense. I like SpongeBob a lot. I like Avatar a lot. Here's the problem I have with Avatar. You don't remember the theme song. You don't remember the music.
Nope, because you're just listening to the monologue.
You remember the dialogue. Yes. And I think that's why SpongeBob has a clear edge here.
Yep.
Avatar's a great title sequence, but as a theme song goes, the song is just absent, and SpongeBob takes it.
I agree.
Plus, he plays the nose flute at the end.
Yeah. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
Yeah. Last in this round of 64, the very last thing we've got to determine in the round of 64.
Yep.
Phineas and Ferb versus Bluey.
Bluey is so popular.
It is. And this is one I think where I agree, but I think you were too harsh.
The problem is, I can't argue against your arguments for Bluey. You make a lot of good technical arguments about like the song and what it's doing and both its simplicity yet complex nature. But it's just not designed for me. I'm not into it.
No, you're right. They did not design the Bluey theme song for you,
Yeah.
20-something American male.
But Phineas and Ferb, yeah, I grew up with it, but I feel like even as an adult, if I hadn't heard it before, it's a fun theme.
It is. Well, Phineas and Ferb, the theme is by Bowling for Soup. It's a theme that they wrote specifically about Phineas and Ferb. And it starts with this really laid-back section. There's 104 days of summer vacation. It tells us the premise. It poses a question. How are we going to spend it? And then we get into the upbeat section where they give us a million different exciting ways to spend it.
It's kind of like the Big Bang Theory, where they cramp so much in a short amount of time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's really awesome that they do that. I think it gives you this sense of wonder about the show. Like, you never know what's going to be possible, what they're going to do next. It's really cool. Bluey, I thought was really excellent. It's, yeah, very simple, but then the breaks in between when they start up each time again and how it builds every time. You know, the first time you hear that theme, it's like hand claps and a harmonica. And then there's this long pause that nobody knows how to count right. Nobody knows what the timing on it is. But then it's back into it and it builds more.
Yeah, I think you're extra intrigued by like the mystery of the construction and the timing of this song more than I care to be. I don't find it that interesting.
When the internet dug into it, I also got into it.
I don't think it adds anything to the actual song. I really don't care what it is. I'm just listening to it going, yeah, it's whatever, you know?
Sure.
None of that adds or detracts anything. I'm neutral and all that stuff, so.
I like it a lot. It's cool, and I like the way that every loop through we add more instruments and it gets more full as a sound.
Sure.
But that said, it is a little short, and it is that same refrain over and over again. And I think the winner here is Phineas and Ferb.
I agree.
So as much as I hate to admit it, it has to be.
But now Jeopardy versus Family Feud, which is rough.
The best two, I think, game show themes that are out there.
Yeah.
Realistically. And Family Feud is a really good one. It is, but
But it doesn't have the staying power of do.
no, it just comes down again to everybody.
I mean, I'll be waiting on something to happen at work and in my head start humming Jeopardy.
Yeah.
I mean, it just subconsciously exists sometimes in my brain. I didn't see how we couldn't pick it.
I didn't either. I love Family Feud, but in no world is Family Feud gonna win out over Jeopardy, I think. Which I feel like is a non-thing. I want to save all our big thoughts until, you know, these bigger rounds.
I know.
Survivor versus The Real Housewives is a really interesting situation too. Survivor is so memorable in a way that Real Housewives wasn't.
Uh-huh.
It's also unique. You know, Real Housewives kind of sounds like a generic reality TV theme, but Survivor is uniquely and distinctly Survivor only.
I agree.
So over The Real Housewives, I think I'd give Survivor the edge.
I think the same thing can be said here about Simpsons versus Attack on Titan. I think Attack on Titan was very cool, very interesting, really intrigued me, but the novelty and the running bits and the iconicism of Simpsons made it hard not to pick.
Yeah, it really does set it apart. The Simpsons also has a nice dynamic contrast where, like we said, like Attack on Titan just goes and goes and goes. The Simpsons kind of just gives you a tour of Springfield. You know, you're with it.
Yeah.
So I think it's The Simpsons. over Attack on Titan. SpongeBob SquarePants versus Phineas and Ferb is another really, really hard race to call.
Disney versus Nickelodeon.
I mean, I guess.
Battle as old as time.
Well, I don't know.
A lot of kids were either Nickelodeon kids or Disney kids. I feel like growing up, there's a lot of people that argued as kids which one was better, Disney shows or Nickelodeon shows.
Yeah, maybe. I think I'd go a different way than we ended up on this.
Do you think?
I mean, the Phineas and Ferb theme song just has a lot of merit as a song, but SpongeBob is such a...
I almost feel like in the moment, I also was leaning the other way, but you were the one that convinced me to go the way we did. And so now it's interesting to hear you say you'd go the other way.
Maybe I would. SpongeBob there's no other theme song like it.
That sounds like it, right.
Phineas and Ferb, you even just said it's like the Big Bang Theory a little bit.
Yeah.
It's comparable. But SpongeBob, I think, almost has no comparable point of reference.
I agree. I was leaning SpongeBob, but you, when we were deciding all this, launched into why Phineas and Ferb should be the winner, and so I just kind of went with it. I didn't have a strong argument one way or the other, but I was leaning SpongeBob.
The strong argument for Phineas and Ferb is just that it tells you the entire premise of the show without spoiling anything in the show.
Yeah.
I think you get every character. You get Candace, trying to bust everybody. You understand all the relational dynamics right away, in addition to the stakes of, like, what are we going to do for the summer?
Yep.
It's a really good exposition in a way that SpongeBob's kind of goofiness isn't. Oh, he's a sponge, he lives underwater.
Phineas and Ferb is like Big Bang Theory meets Fresh Prince in terms of, like, what it does.
Sure, what a weird... Nobody's ever thought that before, I'm actually pretty sure. But either way, we decided Phineas and Ferb should move on. And I think, it's kind of a situation where you can't make a wrong pick.
Yep.
Both of them could deserve that Sweet 16 spot. Jeopardy versus Survivor.
This is where I think Survivor loses, finally.
I think this is Survivor, the tribe has spoken. Yeah, we might have to snuff its torch. Jeopardy is succinct. Survivor, the theme song is long.
It's very long, a lot going on.
And I think you couldn't make the Survivor theme song shorter. You could maybe pick out a little chunk, but it doesn't shrink very well.
No.
I feel like it'd be missing something. Whereas Jeopardy...
They do use the oh from the beginning, like, as stingers in other parts of the show, but they don't really use the music.
Yeah, but that's just the one part.
Whereas Jeopardy, I mean, they bring it back. It's like, it's highlighted, not just as a theme song, but in the most climactic round of the game. I mean...
Yeah, that's true. And not many theme songs get that kind of attention.
Yeah.
I think it's Jeopardy here. We got to cut Survivor loose. In The Simpsons versus Phineas and Ferb, it's a tough call.
This is where we wheeled and dealed for Psych.
Yeah, it is.
Actually, because I disagreed with you here. I had a dissenting opinion, but I was like, all right, I'll take Psych and you can have what you want here.
For me, this one comes down to, like, melody. Phineas and Ferb is a fun melody, but it's everything you'd expect. The Simpsons, do 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 do, like that part where it goes lower than you expect, like it's a really interesting melody. You kind of don't see it coming, and then it's in your head forever. It's perfect. And so even though there's no words that set everything up, except for, the very ethereal The Simpsons at the beginning.
Yeah, that's the most iconic part for me.
It is, yeah. I think it's just the better constructed song.
So here's an interesting question. Since you think you actually would have gone with SpongeBob, do you think SpongeBob still loses to The Simpsons?
Totally. Not even close. I think The Simpsons ends up here either way you slice it.
I agree, which is also why I didn't mind giving you Phineas and Ferb.
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't really fight you because like either one's going to lose to The Simpsons. So
it's true. So in the Elite Eight, we'll see Jeopardy up against The Simpsons.
Yep. Which brings us to a new graphic.
It brings us to the Elite Eight altogether. Your Elite Eight for the bracket. I mean, categories aside, we still have to finish the categories a little bit. The X-Files versus Game of Thrones to round out the drama.
Yep.
Law and Order versus NCIS are the last men standing from the crime and action series. The Golden Girls versus Friends are the last two remaining sitcoms. Mm-hmm. And Jeopardy versus The Simpsons are vying for control of the mixed bag children animated game reality quadrant.
Yep.
So let's get back to the X-Files and Game of Thrones. What do you think about those?
To me, this one was relatively easy.
Was it?
I think both are iconic still even today, even though one's an older theme and one is a relatively newer theme.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I just want to go fight a dragon. I mean, I can't get over it. From the moment you hit play on Game of Thrones, I'm in dragon fighting mode.
Yeah, for me in this round, it was about the consistency of the melody, Game of Thrones repeating it over and over was huge. Whereas the X-Files, that lead line changes every time. Do-do-do-do-do. And then it goes to somewhere else, which was a benefit to it in previous rounds. But up against Game of Thrones, you just can't beat that dynamic contrast, I think.
You can just sing along to the entire Game of Thrones one because it's consistent. Dragons.
It's pretty good. And so dragons are going to win over aliens, and Game of Thrones moves on in the Elite Eight. Law and Order versus NCIS. Dun dun.
Dun, 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 dun.
So Law and Order obviously has that very iconic thing going for it. NCIS, also highly recognizable, highly memorable.
But there's less that is recognizable in NCIS. I think NCIS has the initial run and the do 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 do
Yes.
do. That part is memorable. I couldn't sing the rest of it to you. I know the beginning of the NCIS. I know all of Law and Order.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with you on that point.
And I've seen more NCIS than I've seen Law and Order.
Yeah. I think it's just, for me, it's about how Law and Order has transcended music and kind of become that meme. And everybody knows it. Everybody talks about it. It's just Law and Order seems like the way to go. It's the crime show to end all crime shows. Mm-hmm. If you ask people to name crime shows, it's probably the first one they're going to name. Up next is maybe the hardest of the Elite Eight to tackle.
I think it was the hardest of maybe the whole bracket.
I could see it. It's the Golden Girls versus Friends.
If not this, then something in the final four.
Thank You for Being a Friend versus Friends.
Yeah, thank you for being a friend versus Friends. This is one that I think in my heart, I want to go opposite of what my brain says should win and what we said won.
Yeah, I don't have that problem.
Part of it's because I like the show better. Part of it is I like the song better.
Interesting. I think the problem here is that the Golden Girls song was already majorly popular before it was their theme song, and they just took it.
I know that, and the fact that, Friends was written for Friends and revitalized the theme song, industry of music.
Yeah.
My brain says, how can you not pick Friends? But in my heart, every time I hear, thank you for being a friend, I just want to pick it so badly.
I don't think he can. I think Friends just has that style. It makes me want to watch the show a little bit.
I also think I could give you more of the Friends theme song outside of the Golden Girls theme song if I had to sing it all for you as far as I could get. I could get farther than Friends, which tells me it has more staying power in my brain. Because again, I've seen all of Golden Girls, haven't seen all of Friends. So
yeah,
you have to give it to Friends as much as my heart wants to give it to Golden Girls.
You have to give it to Friends. It had to happen. All right, last entry into the final four, Jeopardy versus The Simpsons.
This one was actually pretty easy for me.
Was it really? It is a tight race, I think.
You are much more into the Simpsons theme than I was. I would have picked Phineas and Ferb over the Simpsons, as we said.
Oh, gosh.
I wheeled and dealed it. I think I would have picked SpongeBob over Simpsons. The Simpsons is too long for me. And if you remove the actual theme sequence itself of all the bits that are going on in the opening sequence, the music loses a lot. I think the music fits those bits a lot, and when removed, it loses some of its charm and just overstays its welcome.
No. It mixes up that theme every time. There's the normal time. There's the time they make it sound like a car horn. There's glissandos. There's a time they do it halftime.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to do it all that. It's a theme song. Get in, get out, be done.
It is a little long.
I think it overstays its welcome when you remove it from what's happening. I think it's perfectly fine how long it is when you've got a visual component.
Sure.
I think if you remove the visual component, it overstays its welcome. And so...
Well, that's fair enough.
I had no problem picking Jeopardy that literally lasts for a whole minute they get to do the final question and doesn't get boring once.
Not even a little bit. It's the key changes in Jeopardy. It's the key changes that really sell it. And Jeopardy is just, it's a household theme song.
Yep.
I think you got to take it here over The Simpsons.
I agree.
Which makes our final four Game of Thrones versus Law and Order.
And
then Friends versus
Jeopardy. What a showdown.
Game of Thrones versus Law and Order first. Let's tackle that.
Oh, man, what a showdown.
I know, it's tough, but...
Dragons versus the law.
Yeah, here was my sticking point with this one. We discussed this already when we were ranking them and stuff, but I think they're both excellent themes. But Game of Thrones sounds a little bit like every fantasy theme ever. Whereas Law and Order, I mean, it's unique even among crime dramas.
I mean, even in earlier rounds, we were talking about how Game of Thrones like puts you right in the mind of, this is a fantasy show the minute it starts. Like that helped it in earlier rounds.
Well, that's true.
But I think at this point, now it hurts it a little bit because how do you distinguish that from any other show in its, genre?
Yeah.
Versus Law and Order, I mean, it's gone up again. We didn't have any other fantasy shows in the drama section, really. I mean, Buffy, maybe. Does that count as a fantasy show? I don't know. Westworld,
I don't
maybe.
know. Well, see, like...
Nothing quite like Game of Thrones. Nothing like high fantasy, right?
No.
Dragons and knights and stuff like that. We've had other crime shows, Blue Bloods, NCIS. I mean, Law & Order beat NCIS last round. So, it's gone up against things in its genre and won. Because it sounds unique to everything it went up against in its genre.
It does. Think about it this way. If someone grew up in a vacuum, never watched either of these shows or heard either of their theme songs, if you played Game of Thrones for them, they might not even realize it was a TV show theme song. Whereas Law and Order is pretty unmistakable.
Yeah. And I think there's that dun 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 dun. Everybody knows that. If you do that in front of somebody, they're gonna know. Just dun dun. They're gonna be able to know. Oh, you're doing the Law and Order theme song.
Yeah. So I think Law and Order has to move on.
I agree.
We have to close the door or whatever they say about Game of Thrones.
But I'll be honest, I could hear arguments for all four of these winning.
Yeah.
This is just what we chose based on our own opinions and debates. I don't think there's a wrong one in these four, depending on your personal taste and opinions on what a theme song should be.
No.
And I think you could make arguments for several in the Elite Eight as well that could have made it all the way to the winning spot.
It's true.
From the Elite Eight forward, this was a tough competition, and personal bias and opinions on what theme songs should be could sway one way or another.
Friends versus Jeopardy is a tough matchup. It's not one I expected to be solving.
No, I think we spent the longest amount of time on this one. This is the other one that I said if Friends and Golden Girls wasn't the toughest for me in the whole bracket, this was.
Yeah. Friends is really great, but this is a moment where we have to differentiate. Friends is a really great song. Jeopardy is exclusively a theme song. I never listened to it otherwise.
I mean, so is Friends, right? I think Friends was written explicitly for Friends, wasn't it?
Well, maybe, written explicitly for. But Friends is just a song I'd throw on a playlist and listen to. It can be a song.
Sure.
Jeopardy is a theme song through and through, and there's no way around it.
Yeah, I also think just Jeopardy, I mean, who doesn't like Jeopardy, right? I mean, Friends is divisive. There are people who are like, Friends suck, and people are like, Friends is the greatest TV show of all time.
It's true.
Who doesn't hear Jeopardy and go, yeah, let's answer some trivia,
Right.
Even if trivia is not your thing, I suck at trivia, especially trivia fast like Jeopardy is, right? Jeopardy is, you gotta know trivia and you gotta be fast.
It's timed.
I'm good at knowing, I'm not good at knowing fast.
Give me enough time and I can know anything.
I think we've seen that on some of the game shows you brought me where you've been way too generous in how long you give me to sit there and think about the answer, and then I pull it out of my butt.
You're right. It's true.
But even I love Jeopardy. I try, and I usually find one category in the episode that I can do okay at, and the rest of them are just nothing guesses for me. But
sure.
You had to pick Jeopardy. As much as Friends, but my biggest hang up with not picking Friends was the fact that, again, I've seen articles that talk about how Friends revitalized the TV show theme song industry. Like, that iconicism makes me kind of think maybe Friends deserves to move on, but the household power of Jeopardy, I think, means it is okay to take the spot and move into the final matchup.
Jeopardy couldn't have revitalized the genre because it was around decades before Friends.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
So we've got our final matchup. The championship, Law and Order versus Jeopardy.
I don't know if this is the best way to describe it, but what a milquetoast matchup.
It's really something.
Both of these are so simple and dry themes. I mean, Law and Order's got a little pep in it with some of the music, but Jeopardy is just, I mean, it's literally music that plays while people are trying to think of answers to, like, obscure trivia questions.
Yeah.
Like, it is subtle to its core.
It is. But you hit on something just a second ago, that they're both very inoffensive. You won't find anyone who hears these theme songs and goes, that sucks.
Yeah.
Like, they're universally liked, or at least approved of.
And I think that's why they're here, right?
Totally. That's what makes a good TV theme song in a lot of ways.
Yep.
I mean, each of these songs is really good and unique for their own reasons, which, I mean, we've talked about at length.
But I mean, we were just talking about how great Cheers is, and, like, I don't know how interesting and fun some of them were that were early eliminators that were like, oh, this is fun. And then we get here.
The Sopranos. Even first round losers.
Yeah, and then we just get here to do 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 and dun 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 dun.
They couldn't be much more simple.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe that's what this all boils down to. Maybe this is just a lesson in how simple sometimes is better, you know?
Less is more.
But I don't think we can say much more without revealing the winner.
It's true.
I think we've made arguments for both along the way.
It's been tough. It's been a lot.
But the winner of the 2024 Spin It March Madness TV theme bracket event tournament, that's the word I was looking for, tournament, is...
What is Jeopardy?
Jeopardy
is probably, it's got to be the best theme song. Here was my logic here. Between Law and Order and Jeopardy, I think if I walked up to someone and started trying to like make a reference to the Law and Order theme song, there's maybe a 70-80% chance they get it. If I'm walking up to someone and I'm trying to reference the Jeopardy theme song, I expect them to get it with like 100% certainty.
Yeah, I mean, just what I've been singing along this whole time. Do, 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 do. I think 70-80% of people are going to get that. I think if you go ba, 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 da, 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 everybody gets it. Nobody doesn't get
It's a household theme song. It's as close to everywhere as you get.
The person who doesn't get that is the person who's been living under a rock for the past however many years that theme song's been on air.
Yeah, and that's just what it boils down to.
Somebody went into a coma the night before Jeopardy premiered and just woke up today. That person doesn't know it. Everybody else knows it.
Right.
And that person doesn't leave the hospital without knowing it, because when they're watching TV while they're recovering, that show's coming on.
Sure. They're missing a lot of questions.
Oh, man.
Jeopardy might be the most bland of the theme songs we've talked about.
It's the most bland. Like, we got there and we put it in the winning spot and went, really?
Like, we're not happy about it, but I think just objectively,
it's
gotta be the best TV theme song. It has to beat everything, right?
Yeah, like, it doesn't evoke the emotions of something like "Thank you for being a friend," or
it doesn't,
or "I'll be there for you." Like, it doesn't,
and it doesn't describe the show. It's not about the show.
Nope.
It's not instrumentally, like, it doesn't build.
Nope.
It doesn't rise and fall. It has so few of the qualities that we talked about, good and bad, in other songs.
But it's so the show. It's so iconic. It's so simple. It's so memorable. It's sing-alongable. It hits everything that you want a theme song to do, and it hits it so well everybody knows it.
Yeah.
You said something that cracked me up when we picked it. You said it's the Midnights of this bracket. Like, of course it was gonna win.
Midnights won the Grammy for Album of the Year. Yeah. How does Midnights not win the Album of the Year Grammy, even though there's other stuff out there that was maybe a lot more interesting or engaging in a lot of ways? Because it has to win.
Yeah. Like, you take Jeopardy off this board and look at all the other stuff that potentially could move forward.
So much. It kind of becomes a free-for-all.
You could have a Simpsons versus Law and Order, which would be interesting. Or, maybe the Simpsons loses out to Friends, and you have a Friends versus Law and Order. Who knows what this final matchup could have been without Jeopardy here.
But it is here, and that's the point of it.
Yeah, and, it wins.
It does win, yeah. Well, let's hit some final spin.
Yeah.
We've learned a lot today. Wow, I'm impressed and excited that we did a full March Madness length bracket in an episode.
Yeah.
It was ambitious. I knew from the start.
I mean, we're not too much longer than what, for at least a recording time. I don't know how much of it'll get cut out.
Oh, no, it'll be longer than a normal episode. Anyway, what an absurd bracket. I think we should revisit the March Madness concept next March.
I agree.
I mean, we do these bracket challenges. I think they're a ton of fun.
I mean, we can branch outside of TV show themes and go to other types of stuff.
Oh,
but
totally.
I mean, even just within TV themes. I mean, we talk about how restricted we were and all these other ones that could have been on there. And heck, you could do almost a whole animated one, and still maybe not quite get to 64, but get close.
I like the opportunities it presents us to do special things like TV themes or video game soundtracks, or like there's a lot of opportunity to branch out of the normal episode format.
Yeah, I think video game soundtracks would be fun. Movies would be fun. I think if we do movies, we just pick specific themes from movies, like character themes, like character movie themes, like Darth Vader, Indiana Jones. We pick like characters.
We'll see. We got to wait another year.
Yeah, who knows what we'll concoct between now and then. We might abandon visual media altogether and go do something else, music related.
Yeah. But, yeah, as you may have guessed, this is not the usual shtick. Usually, every week, we pick an album that I know and love and Connor's never listened to or has heard singles from, something like that. and we rate it. We give it a score. We learn facts about the artists, and it's a blast.
None of that exists here.
No.
What I want to know is what TV themes didn't make the bracket, or what made the bracket but got eliminated and shouldn't have. Like, what was your winner? What should have won?
Yeah, tell us.
Tell us online, because I'm very curious.
You can tell us at Spin It Pod Official on Instagram, at Spin It Pod on X, and on Twitch, where we recorded this episode live.
You can be live with us.
That's right. And you can find us on the web at www.spinitpod.com, where every episode lives.
Where you can also find this, probably a version of this bracket.
Sure can. We'll be back next week with another
normal episode.
Rockin' album that'll kickstart your heart, and it'll be a blast. Tell a friend who watches too much TV about the podcast. We will see you next week. And until then,
keep spinning. I think I hear a blimp overhead.
Did he find us finally?
Hang on. Hey, it's me, the mixtaper. Did I miss it?
Mixtaper, you did make it. You missed actually everything except the very end.
Did Golden Girls win?
No.
What?
Sorry to say.
You know, I'm an honorary Golden Girl.
Are you really? Is that just a spin?
It's just a spin, but I wish. I feel like I would have fit in well with that group.
Yeah.
I'm going to start my own Golden Girls called, like, the Purple Girls, with, like, me, the Gopher. And my theme song will be, thank you for being a dastard.
Nice. We'll see if it makes the bracket next year.
All right, well, I got to go figure out how to get this blimp down. I always struggle with landings.
It's like the easiest thing to do with a blimp.
Harder than it looks. Yeah.